We're perfect. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm Chelsea Petrovic, the MLA for Livingston Macleod. It's truly a pleasure to welcome you all tonight. We have a massive turnout. We have met fire code capacity, so thank you all. I want to acknowledge how fortunate we are to have leadership that's not only present, but actively engaged in hearing from the people they serve. I'm going to get through this, and then I'm going to set some ground rules. In a time when many feel their voices are unheard, it's encouraging to see a government that is committed to listening, learning, and leading with transparency. We're joined by some of the most influential voices in our leadership. Premier Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta. Minister Schulz, the Minister of Environment and Protected Areas. Minister Brian G, Minister of Energy and Minerals. And Minister RJ Sigurdson, Minister of Agriculture and Irrigation. Each of these leaders brings a unique perspective and a deep commitment to the future of Alberta, whether it's protecting our natural landscapes, responsibly developing our energy resources, or supporting the agricultural backbone of our province. The work touches every corner of our community. But before we begin, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. Emergency exits are located at the front entrance where you came in, or here to my left, your right. And washrooms can be found to my right, your left at the entry. Please take a moment to familiarize yourself with these locations in case of an emergency. Today's format will begin with opening remarks from each of our ministers and the Premier. These remarks will help set the stage for conversations we'll be having tonight to provide insight into the priorities and initiatives currently underway. Following that, we'll move into a question and answer period. I, as your moderator, will be allowing 30 seconds per questions to ensure we can hear from as many of you as possible. I kindly ask that everyone keep their questions concise and respectful. This is a space for open dialogue, and I will be maintaining appropriate decorum throughout the event to ensure it remains constructive and inclusive for all. With that, let's begin. Please welcome me in joining our first speaker, Minister Brian G.
How's that? Is that better? Well, it's fantastic to be here. I love to be anywhere in Alberta. It's the greatest place to live, work, and play in the entire planet. And I'll tell you, when I became the Minister of Energy and Minerals last year, part of the mandate was to improve and modernize our energy policies. Well, folks, I'm very proud to live in Alberta, a place where my ancestors came when there was the Indigenous folks here in Treaty 8, Treaty 7, Treaty 6, and the Inuit. I live in northern Alberta.
You missed one.
And I'll tell you, there's a lot of great people up there in the Indigenous communities that really like what we're doing. And I appreciate them too, because we've seen a lot of development there. In fact, when I first got elected and became Minister of Energy, the Premier gave me a specific mandate. I was to improve and modernize our energy policies to ensure that Alberta remains globally competitive. Now, I'm going to spend about 12 minutes talking. If you want to listen, I can spend 12 minutes talking and telling you what I did and why I did it. I think that's important. I don't know if you guys want to hear that. You folks want to hear that? Do you care about the environment? Do you care about the environment? Yes, we do. So give me 12 minutes of my time and respect everybody else up here, because we care just as much as you do. That's really respectful, thanks. But this is why in December I shared my ministry's plan for the long overdue modernization of Alberta's coal policy with the launch of the Coal Industry Modernization Initiative. We're bringing coal development in Alberta from the 19th century to the 21st century, and I heard Grassy Mountain. I didn't like what they did there either. But I wasn't in government then, but now I am, so I can do something about it. So give me the respect to let me do something about it. Now this action addresses the 2021 coal policy recommendations to build a long-term legislative and regulatory framework to guide responsible coal development across the province and make it the best in the world. Exactly what we're planning on doing. It also builds on the 1976 coal development policy that was rules need to be modernized, brought up to date, so we can protect things that you care. I think you do care about protecting things. I do. They tell us Alberta has fallen behind other jurisdictions. Do better. Protecting our water will be the top priority of the development of our new coal policy, because water is life. If, and this is a big if, coal mining is allowed, it will be allowed only to the highest possible standard. Alberta's new coal standards will be among the best, if not the best in the world. Now, you can get an email, sir, you're listening to lies. BC's doing it, and let's face it, they're no geniuses, but they're bringing selenium out of the outriver, and if they can do it, we should too. Now, this ER, we've asked them to conduct targeted engagement with coal industry stakeholders to start the modernization initiative. We're not done yet. We want to get it right. That's why we're listening. And these sessions allow industry to share best practices that are in use in other jurisdictions around the world and allow us to give industry a heads up on coming policy changes. We have to talk, folks. Work will be done, but it will be done right, with the goal of having a new coal policy ready by the end of this year. Our work may include amendments to relevant laws, to regulations, to rules, and to directives to achieve the desired objectives, to protect water, to protect life, to protect animals, flora and fauna, and us. Amendments will be focused on royalty rates, mining standards, and regulatory certainty for investors. and most of all, building confidence among Albertans that our air, our land, our water, and wildlife will not be sacrificed. That's the big message. You might not want to hear it, but that's the truth.
Lies!
The instructions I've had, and that's what we're. Let me expand on that message just a little bit, folks.
Lies!
We're going to consult with industry on how things get done. But we're not consulting, listen carefully, please.
Pioneers!
We're not consulting on what will and will not be allowed. We've already decided that. We are not handing over the keys for unlimited coal development anywhere in Alberta, especially not Alberta's precious natural spaces. We will not put our water at risk. Protecting our waters will be a top priority, the top priority when considering new mining projects. The eastern slopes are the headwaters for most of southern Alberta, and these waters must be and will be protected. Do you agree? Should we protect the water? Yes. I'm glad you agree with me because I think all Albertans agree we need to do things better than we've done in the past. And that's why you just trust government. I don't blame you. The NDP did a terrible job. And in fact, they were the ones that started this problem in the first place. But, you know, I don't even get into that. We're going to solve it. With this premier, with our fortitude, and with your input, we'll get this right. Any new project in the foothills will need to prevent any additional selenium leaching into our waters, or it won't be approved. And it can be done. Both pro and anti-coal selenium experts agree that it can be done. The ones that look at the facts. The Federal Environment Department, my goodness gracious, they even think it can be done. Industry knows how to do it, and Alberta's industry is the best on the planet. We will make sure that industry does what's necessary to keep the selenium out of our water, to keep it clean, because water is life. We will protect the foothills. We are not allowing
mind if I squeeze in here?
not now, not ever.
Thank you. I just
There will never be projects to mine up an entire mountain and cause it to no longer exist. That's not the Alberta way. It's never been done and never will be allowed to happen. And we will not allow any new open pit coal mines in the eastern slopes. No new open pit coal mines in the eastern slopes. To anyone using images of open pit mines in other countries or listening to the liars out there, or the devastating mountains in West Virginia, well, advertising pictures are not true. You are listening to lies. They do not happen here. They will not happen here. So, why coal? How about listen to this for a second? Why coal?
Yeah, why?
I want to anticipate some questions so we answer them for you. Yes, Alberta has stopped burning coal to generate electricity. It's been great, isn't it? Because we use natural gas and it's in abundance here. But that was thermal coal. And aside from a few very specific agriculture uses for fertilizer and other great things like that, thermal coal is no longer used in Alberta.
we all know this.
What we are talking about is mostly metallurgical coal. You know, for those belt buckles you have, for the computers you use, 30 grams of metal. Yeah, sometimes you can make it and send it back to us. I don't think that's a great solution, but Alberta has some of the best steel-making coal in the world. Thank you for that, folks. Really appreciate you being here tonight. Our steel-making coal is needed worldwide to make steel for millions of end uses. The European Union, those folks way over east past the ocean, they've actually declared steel-making coal a critical raw material. And you know, they're sort of facing some people in the world that aren't friendly. They think it's critical to have metallurgical coal. I do too. It's needed for the energy transition. For all countries, steel will be an essential component for infrastructure, and Alberta's metallurgical coal should be there to help with those demands, to help you with your demands and your expectations for life. Now, given the current and anticipated future global demand for coal, particularly from Asian markets like Korea and Taiwan, maintaining opportunities for responsible development of coal resources is very important to Alberta, to Canada, and to the free world. Ensuring opportunities for steelmaking, coal exploitation, and development will boost and diversify our economy and create lots of jobs for you and your families. Now, the steel that we make, the great quality, high quality steel that we make with Alberta metallurgical coal will return to our province in the form of building materials, home appliances, cars and trucks that you drive, and farm equipment that bring our agriculture to the market.
Belt buckles.
Solar panels and wind turbines that can't be built without it. The majority of coal rights in the foothills are owned by you, by the Alberta Crown. Any new development of Crown-owned coal would generate royalty revenue for Albertans that pays for schools, highways, hospitals.
Just let Brian Jean talk for us. Our own worst enemy.
Certainly need and desire.
Awful.
Don't you love Alberta? We can actually be free to say things. Isn't that the great thing about Alberta? Great thing about our premier, she brings that the ability to discuss things. I think it's fantastic, folks. Democracy is not everywhere in the world that we have it here. It's great.
Yep. For now.
Now, as part of this coal modernization initiative, we will be substantially increasing coal royalties. So some folks might not find it affordable, but the truth is that Albertans are not getting out for this resource. There are also many coal rights that are privately owned. That means they're freehold. We intend to introduce a new freehold coal tax. Responsible coal development will result in increased investment and jobs for Albertans while respecting the existing property rights of landowners who have freehold title to the coal on their lands. Freehold coal rights have existed in Alberta longer than I've been alive, and in fact longer than Alberta has been a province. These rights belong to individuals. These were often created by Canada before Alberta controlled our own resources. I'm sure that there are many farmers and ranchers right now who own the coal and or mineral rights under their land, and they want to be treated fairly. I agree they should be. Allow me to state the existing Supreme Court precedents. The government, and I quote, the government cannot expropriate freehold coal rights without paying fair compensation to the owners of those properties. End quote. I'll be bold and answer another question that I think we have right now. Why are we doing this now? Well, our province chose a new premier.
North back.
And I really like what they did. I think they did a great job. I'm glad you do too. And we've heard loud and clear from Albertans that they're concerned about the environmental impacts of coal development and they want it settled. They want to protect the foothills and you want to protect the water. You're concerned about where coal development takes place in Alberta, about the regulatory approvals, about the oversight, and about enforcement for coal exploration, development, and reclamation. You're concerned. I'm concerned about the provincial and local economic and community impacts of coal mining, jobs development, and the environment have to be balanced. I live in the middle of the oil sands. You can't tell me what I'm concerned about and what I'm not concerned about. I'm very concerned about our Earth and our planet, and I'm getting it right just like our government's getting it right. Overwhelmingly, we have heard from you that our coal policies need to be modernized, need to be strengthened and environmentally focused. Clear and pragmatic regulations have always played an important part in Alberta's economic advantage. I'm proud to lead a ministry which supervises our world-class development of responsible energy, and we will also supervise the world-class development of responsible minerals. The Coal Industry Modernization Initiative will deliver a modern policy that protects our environment, drives investment in our province, and ensures that Albertans are treated fairly by resource industries. We are taking a whole government approach to this issue, as you can see, and I'd like to thank my colleagues for joining us on the stage today. And we will do the hard work that is necessary and that other governments have ignored and avoided. And we will deliver a modern coal policy that balances strong environmental protections with responsible resource development. We will do all that while protecting the foothills, protecting our water, and protecting your priorities. Now, please, thank you very much, and give respect to the next speakers, folks. You've yelled enough, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for that. The former Speaker of the Assembly used to say There's a lot to go with respect, so if we're gonna ask the question, we deserve to hear a response as well, and I will continue with this decorum. Right now, I'd like you to welcome Minister Schulz, the Minister of Environment and Protected Areas. Thank you.
Sorry guys, I'm significantly shorter than my colleagues, so it just takes me a minute to get set up here. Let's make sure nothing's gonna fall apart. Hang on here. Okay. All right, good evening, everybody. First, I just want to say thank you. I know spring is a busy time, but June is a busy month.
Speak back in here,
And
guys.
I want to
Thanks.
thank you for taking the time to come out here to have this discussion tonight. I can tell you that from my perspective, protecting and sustainably managing Alberta's
kicked out by
environment
private
is my
security.
top priority. And there has been,
coming.
of course, a lot of discussion about this topic over the last number of months. And tonight, we here want to answer your questions. I'm grateful for my colleagues for making time for this. And as Minister Jean said, I'm really grateful that we have a premier that wants to have these conversations, to hear the concerns of Albertans, to take your feedback, your ideas, and have a respectful discussion about this. It's also great to see a lot of familiar faces in the crowd, and so just once again, thank you. I'm honored to be in this role as Environment Minister, and I can say that our province has one of the best environmental management systems in the world. We do have a very strict regulatory system. It makes sure that water stays safe when any kind of industrial development, whatever industry that may be in, agriculture and other projects occur, and that does of course include coal. So how does it work? First of all, as Minister Jean already said tonight, we can start with what's not going to be allowed. Premier Smith and Minister Jean have been clear no open pit or mountaintop removal mining would be permitted or approved in the province of Alberta in any form. Now, of course, I know our standards. There's been a lot of questions, specifically in my portfolio, about water. And I do want to talk a little bit about selenium. Selenium is listed as a contaminant of concern in our province. It has been for decades. We do have strong regulations in place that require operators to prevent selenium from leaving the mine, monitor the surrounding land and water, and then take action if needed. We do rely on the AER, the Alberta Energy Regulator, to uphold those standards for every project. Now I can tell you, if the data suggests selenium is a risk in a certain project, they would require a mandatory plan be put in place to protect Albertans. We see this, I certainly see this, in projects all the time, whether that is in the initial project approval from my department or from the AER, or upon appeal through the EAB, the Environmental Appeals Board. There are plans required to be put in place to address concerns that we see. These plans would include testing and monitoring of the surrounding area, and then of course the regulator, in this case the AER, their job is to make sure that all of those rules and regulations are followed. There are not exceptions. We have set high standards for a reason, and if an operator cannot meet them, they won't be approved, period. That's how it works. It's how it works in this industry. It's how it works in others. I've seen it in other projects where maybe sometimes a piece of new technology is put in place and concerns are raised, and then that technology is no longer used until a plan is in place to mitigate. I have seen that happen in a variety of different projects around the province in a variety of industries, and I do believe our regulators hold operators to a high standard on that front. But that is not all. Along with the strong regulations, mandatory management plans, and constant monitoring, we do have additional protections in place. As we speak, experts are monitoring over 100 rivers, lakes, groundwater sites throughout the province. That includes almost 60 sites in the South Saskatchewan and the Red Deer River basins alone. We rigorously test for selenium and other contaminants year-round under the Surface Water Quality Framework. All of this work is happening 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to keep protecting Alberta's river, lakes, and lands. And you know what? I heard the question posed last night, and I did anticipate answering that question tonight. The Crow's Nest Lake selenium levels in the Crow's Nest Lake are significantly below the drinking water standards. And that is it is well, all of the testing that we do continues to show. You know what? If you want to ask the question, I sure hope that you would be respectful enough to listen to the answer. All testing continues to show that our drinking water is safe with selenium levels well within the national guidelines for drinking water. We have a strong system in place, but we of course want to keep improving. We will continue to use research and data to help us learn more and expand our approach.
It's not drinking water.
And in the work that Minister Jean is doing on the coal industry modernization.
What about the fish, Minister?
Have been clear about what they want. Responsible development and protecting and stewarding our environment, of course, for today, but for generations to come. So with that, thank you, and I'll hand it back over to
Thank you, Minister Schulz. I now would like to invite Minister RJ Sigurdson, the Minister of Irrigation and Agriculture and Irrigation, for his opening remarks. Welcome.
So we're just going to raise that up. Rebecca, you. Listen, I want to start, just shift gears here a bit. I first want to pause and thank our farmers and ranchers. It's something that I think is incredibly important that we do every single time. Our farmers and ranchers continue to feed our families here and abroad. And I know when I continue to travel, I hear over and over again how our farmers and ranchers are true stewards of the land and how they continue to feed the world and our families here. And I think it's important for us to say, God bless our farmers and ranchers, and thank you for everything they do. Now, since being appointed Minister of Agriculture and Irrigation, I consider this an incredible honor. First of all, agriculture in our province truly is the backbone of everything in Alberta. North to south, east to west. Every move that we've made as a government is ensuring that we're protecting and supporting our farmers and ranchers. We've seen through the investments, $933 million in our irrigation modernization program, expanding our irrigation revitalization program, moving forward with Arlene Airmore. Our government is proving that we understand that water is the future of Alberta and how much our agriculture and our irrigation districts rely on that water to continue to do what they do, which is to grow the highest quality commodities in the world and the best and most sustainably raised livestock in the world. This is something that I want to make sure everybody understands that when we have these conversations, every single time, though, when it comes to monitoring the environment or the coal policy, though it doesn't sit in my ministry, this entire government has always put agriculture first and foremost. And I've had many conversations with individuals here, and I know your concerns about coal. I've sat across the table with you and had the conversation, and I will continue to do so. But I want to make sure that it is abundantly clear that this government supports our agriculture and irrigation district, and we will continue to do so, understanding the support to the future of Alberta. Our Premier has tasked me to work interactively with our government and make sure our farmers and ranchers are getting what they need as we continue to move forward. And I will continue to do that. That's why I'm here tonight. That's why I want to thank Chelsea for hosting this town hall. This is an incredibly important conversation. And I want to thank my colleagues as well for being here tonight so that we can have just that, a constructive conversation as we move forward and talk about this issue. Thanks you.
Thank you, RJ. I won't move the microphone down so much for Mr. Schulz. I'm waiting for a growth spurt. I'd like to welcome our Premier, the Premier of Alberta, to the stage for some opening remarks. Premier, thank you for being here tonight.
Well, thank you, Chelsea, and thank you for organizing this meeting for this evening. I just want to start by saying that sometimes you get into government and you inherit problems that are many decades.
Oh my God. It's never her fault, eh? Always somebody else.
Brian Jean didn't create the problems. I can tell you Rebecca Schulz.
Are you blaming Lougheed, really?
I can tell you RJ Sigurdson didn't create the problems. So
Was it Lougheed?
when we came in, we had a multitude of coal companies that had launched a $14 billion lawsuit.
Don't roll over!
For canceling their leases.
Don't roll over, Danny!
Now, I know there's a lot of landowners in this room, and you know how I feel about property rights. I have been a property rights advocate since 1997. That's why we changed our Bill of Rights to say that if anyone has their property taken from them for public use, they would get full, fair, and timely compensation.
What happened?
That applies just as much to surface landowners as it does to subsurface landowners.
What about now, Danny?
The situation we inherited. That is the problem my energy minister and my environment minister have been trying to solve. If we do nothing, then we're told we'll likely lose those cases and have to pay 14.
Show some fight, Danny. You can do it. Don't roll over.
You know that. It would be $14 billion of payments. So what we're trying to do is to try to find a common ground, a way that certain projects can go ahead with a responsible, modernized policy using best practices, and where hopefully we can settle with some of the other companies to take those rights out of use so that those lands never get developed. That's the process we're in right now.
Don't tread on us, Danny.
Of those proposed mines are not going to go ahead, and that those leases will be returned to the Crown for some future government to make a decision on. But we have to go through that process.
No, we don't.
However, we had. I wasn't here, guys. Like, I'm brand new. I'm just. As you recall, and again, this predated me, there was a coal policy committee that gave us 8 recommendations about how we should balance the interests of future development with the existing rights of landowners and communities. And that's not what they said. We had 30,000 people who participated in this process. And what they said was that we should modernize our coal policy, and we are. And they said that we need to have meaningful Indigenous involvement, and we do. We had to.
Where's the blood tribe then?
Stewardship acts and make sure that we had policies that balanced land use. We're right in the middle of the process of
Fucking
that.
liar.
They asked us to review the tenure and royalties so that we could ensure that Albertans were getting value for the product, and the minister is right in the middle of that. They said that we needed to have a rigorous project assessment, and we are. They said that we had to deal with reclamation liability, and we are. And they also said that they wanted us to prohibit open pit mines and mountaintop removal, and we are. Those are all policies that came from consultation that we have with Albertans. And the last one, of course, is protecting our water resources through using the very best techniques, and that's what we're doing. So the Coal Policy Committee, as you recall, they also identified 4 advanced projects. They identified Grassy and Tent and Vista and Mine 14. And Tent, as I understand it, is not going to proceed with their coal development. They're working on Let's just go through history here. So TENT has worked with the indigenous communities. They may use their mining operation to actually be a pumped water storage in conjunction with a renewable project. That actually is one of the values that they decided that they would prefer to do. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Vista and Mine 14, they are using underground mining techniques, and that is going to ensure that we have less surface disturbance. Rest is going through the process now, and a couple of the things that they have identified is that initially in their proposal, they were going to look at recovering all the coal. They're not now, they're looking at recovering only the most valuable. They want to do reclamation as they...
Surprise the fucking...
And they're going to use the most modern techniques, is what they're proposing, to address the issues of impact on the water. So we have to allow the process to play out. I mean, we
Take him to court, Daddy. You got it.
as I mentioned, there's a legal process playing out where we're getting sued. There is the coal committee process that is playing out, and we're implementing the policies that Albertans told us that they wanted. And they 30,000.
You don't got to roll over, Danielle. Don't roll over on us.
We've got a hard conversation to have in this country, and we're having it across this country because part of the reason why we are in the situation that you're in is because we have not developed our resources and found new markets. We have become reliant on a single customer in the United States. And I can tell you, when I meet with my counterpart, the NDP leader in Manitoba, he's talking proudly about having approved the first gold mine in 15 years and the jobs that is going to create. When I talk to the NDP leader in British Columbia, they have a triangle where they're going to have 6 or 7 different mines that are going to develop to provide the critical minerals that are going to be needed for the future economy. When I talked to Doug Ford or Premier Pascal Legault, they're all advancing projects that are going to lead to Canadian independence, and we're going to be supporting each other. So I'm telling you, my friends, there are 54 different critical minerals in Canada. We have 32 of them in our province. The issues we're dealing with are not just a matter of coal. It's a matter of lithium and graphite and cobalt and
We can't drink coal, Daddy.
and everything we need in order to build a future modern economy.
How about the water, huh?
And so the challenge that we have had, and the challenge we have always had, is how do we develop the resources with the minimal impact on the environment and return the land to as natural conditions as possible, as quickly as possible, after that development is over. And there are good examples in this project that's been done. The Cheviot mine by Sherritt, they did exactly that. They developed the resource and then returned it to a natural condition. The Syncrude tailing pond, they developed the resource and they returned it to a bison ranch that is being run by the Fort Macleod band. These are the kinds of things that we can do in Alberta. And so I would just say that we are here to listen, and we have listened. The reason why all of these changes were made is because of the feedback that we got from Albertans over the last year. And so we're going to make sure that we move forward with a balance. Everything is a balance. And so that is what we're going to do. We have to make sure that we protect the environment, have a minimal impact on land as we're doing the development, but also make sure that we're protecting the future economy and the property rights of those who have them.
You're making a big mistake, but...
More of your feedback and see if there's anything we
Yeah.
can do.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm looking forward to continuing to see Chelsea moderate this discussion tonight. I hope it can be a constructive one.
Well, thank you so much, Premier. I appreciate those remarks. We're going to go and we're going to open the floor to questions. I will be moderating. So I ask that you guys line up single file on the right side of the hall. I just want to remind you that we're going to be allowing 30 seconds per question to ensure we can hear from as many of you as possible. And I once again remind everyone that they keep their questions concise, respectful. In this space, we would like to have open dialogue, and I will be maintaining appropriate decorum throughout the event to ensure it remains constructive for all.
Sorry, sir.
Ms. Bond, for those of you that haven't been up to Fort Macleod and the Legion on a Saturday night, this is pretty normal. My family usually sits over there. But
Good for you, Brian. Yeah, good job, buddy.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Fucking
here?
dork.
Wonderful. So I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to start with your first question. I'm just going to ask that you state your name, the minister you're asking the question to, and then your question.
What's the volume up? I'd like to congratulate you as Premier of Alberta. Anyway, you're doing a fine job as our spokesperson, and I voted for you. The only question I seriously have is, of course, the water quality. When Alfred hasn't been able, to solve the problem, and yet you provide information that new technology. So if a company spends hundreds of millions of dollars trying to solve the problem, what makes you think we're going to believe this right?
Good question.
let me ask really quick, sir. There's no question. I mean, 20, 30 years ago, did we even know flooding was an issue? We didn't. Now we know it's an issue. It's an issue because BC, the NDP government in BC, did I say the NDP government in BC?
Oh, God.
They allowed 6 mines in one river valley. Now, one river valley where they turn the overburden upside down, and the rain comes down and washes the swimming down to the river. Well, now we know that's a problem. That's why they had to spend a lot of money, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, I think, on it.
Answer the question, Brian.
We're not going to allow that to happen in the first place because now we know it's an issue. So let's take it seriously from the start. If they can't control the splitting issue and show us how they're going to do it before they put a shovel in the ground, they're not going to get a permit to do it.
We're just going to go ahead and try to move through the line as quickly as possible. So thank you for your question. I appreciate it.
Answer it.
That's a good question. You here? Mike Judd from Pincher Creek. I've been fighting off this kind of exploitation of the eastern slopes all my life.
Yeah.
We're going to fight this in the streets, in the courts, and on the mountains if we have to.
Nice.
Now, the best part of Alberta, to some foreign oligarch, just on it, she can make a few cents a pound on coal from our mountains.
Kickbacks. Here, brother. Well said.
There's different ways to do it. And this gentleman over here said, you can't stop selenium from running into the river. Well, what if you don't allow anything to run in the river? You don't have to mine at the top of the slope that feeds into a river. There's different ways to mine. There's different ways around the world right now, folks. We're not going to let people come in here, billionaires from across the world, and take a shovel and completely destroy our environment. We are not going to let that happen. That's exactly a good point, sir. Where are they going to get the water? That's their problem, sir. Let's see where they come up with it. If they can't come up with a solution, they don't get it.
Thank you, Minister. Just a reminder, we allowed to ask the questions. It'd be nice to hear the response to this. So our next question here, your name, sir?
Nixon Hammond, Rancher, Bishop Creek. Finger Smith, I think it's obvious that the general population here in this room has voted for you in a rural base in southern Alberta. If I may, I'd like to speak about the white elephant in the room, that being the multi-generational ranchers and farmers that depend on clean, abundant water sources for livestock and crops and our livelihoods. These are the people who voted for you, and it appears that you're favoring this project over livelihoods and future livelihoods. Why are we talking about removing and contaminating water in a landscape that depends on the biodiversity only to affect the very population that elected you to do so overwhelmingly?
As I understand it, different mountains have different levels of selenium. 10 has a higher level of selenium, which is why we're monitoring the lake that is being fed from some of the runoff. And even there, as the minister said, with a higher level of selenium in the mountain, it's still 1.38 micrograms per liter. The selenium of cattle and humans is 50 micrograms per liter. So even in Kent, where there is a much higher selenium content, it's still well below the impact that it would have on human health and animal health. When it comes to grassing, you've got a much lower selenium level. But I think what Brian is saying is that if you don't do the disturbance, the mountaintop removal, and you don't end up with that weathering, it's the wet and then the drying and the wetting and the drying, that causes the selenium to go into the river system. If you don't do that kind of mining, you're going to be able to mitigate. But there are also channels so that you're able to avoid it. Those are the things that we're going to expect that the companies will do if they're going to get a permit approval. They also just got approval to do some core sampling to see if they can use some of the underground mining techniques. You have to be at a certain depth in order to be able to do that. They're able to do it in a couple of the other advanced mines. And I'd like to see that process play out because I think if they can satisfy the concerns that we're hearing, you're hearing, and what you're saying, and I think that the regulator will take that into account. So I think that what you should take away is that the company has dramatically modified what was initially going to do because of the feedback that they got. And they haven't yet satisfied the regulator on all fronts, but we're prepared to allow that process to play out and see what the regulator says.
The regulator.
If I could just add, the study that the Premier mentioned around Schulz Lake, we're being very transparent about the studies and the data that we have. Premier has an expectation that the information that we gather is online, but it's also then being used to form our policies. And so I do want people to know, and what Premier said is completely accurate, the average selenium concentration in Schulz Lake was 1.6 micrograms per liter, while the Canadian drinking water standard is 50 micrograms per liter, and for irrigation it's 20 micrograms per liter. Now, the fish tissue study, we did release that. We are being transparent. This shows how seriously.
What did it say?
Additional works, I'm just going to say, given the low levels of selenium in the water, additional work is being done to determine, and it hasn't yet been peer reviewed. We want that process to happen, and we want to understand what is happening there so that we can prevent that happening in the future. That study was funded by government. It was conducted by government researchers. It's still in the peer review process. Once we have that, we'll make sure that that data is transparently shared as well so that there is confidence in both our monitoring and testing, but then the regulations that we have in place and the transparency and how seriously we take that issue.
Bullshit.
And if I can just say this, folks, just to add to that, you know, one of the things we've discovered listening to scientists and experts is that
No.
is that selenium affects the reproductive rate and the reproductive ability of fish for different species. But then our scientists went in and checked out all the species that were in the lake. And they're all years. All years. Infant. So it's not
That's why we're continuing to study, folks, because we can't see the evidence that it's causing problems with the reproduction fish. We need more evidence of that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
We continue to monitor, continue to listen to experts, and we continue to get evidence.
Brian, don't hurt yourself, bud. Jesus Christ.
Chelsea, I'm just gonna chime in on this one. I'm just gonna say this, and probably shake the room up a bit. I battle every single day on misinformation against farmers and ranchers pushing to shut down conventional farming and ranching. Eco activists that continue to get provided.
Oh, yeah. 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 Oh, yeah. 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 Keep it coming, buddy. Yeah. Yeah, they love it. They love it, bud. Yeah.
We talk about protecting the environment. It's about setting regulations, monitoring the water, and letting the scientists and being transparent to the public about that. When we set a precedent to ban one industry because of selenium intrusion into the water, how many people know how many other industries put selenium into the water? And if we actually go down this road, it is a precedent that puts many industries.
No, it's not. No, it doesn't.
Including agriculture.
You're cherry picking, bud. You're cherry picking, bud. You're cherry picking.
In this process, we're going to put regulations in place. We're going to monitor the streams and rivers, ensure our farmers and ranchers have clean water to irrigate, and we're always going to make sure that happens. And every single day, I'm Minister of Agriculture. I'll ensure that that does happen.
Right, buddy.
If I may, Chelsea, just because we're trying to explain what the scientists are telling us about what safe levels are. And why did Health Canada set the limit that they did? So they recommend a daily amount of selenium of 45 micrograms, meaning you should ingest 45 micrograms.
It's good for you.
Brazil nut has between 70 and 90 micrograms of selenium. So they set a limit, or if you're in animal health, saying that it should be 50 micrograms per liter of water. That's to give you a gauge of what that looks like. That's about 1.5 Brazil nuts.
That's such so funny. It's good for you now.
Thank you. Sorry,
I am from HPMD, and my question is for Danielle Smith. I'm just like my friends, like any other white person in this room. The land acknowledgement. That is never spoken. I have the land acknowledgement. It's very simple to understand then why it's not trustworthy to talk about water quality, protecting the land, environmentalism, if we do not acknowledge the land.
That's right.
I just met at the Clover's Lake for a ceremony, and they are not being invited.
Your 30 seconds is almost up, please.
Oh, stop. Boo.
Any comments in regards to this?
Over to you, Premier.
Well, folks, I have a large, I don't know if anybody's related to more Indigenous folks than me, but
Brian, you lost the leadership race, bud.
folks, but my family is Indigenous up in northern Alberta.
You're not the Premier.
I did in the Platinum Development. Now, I will tell you that I may not be the most, incredible speaker with words of land acknowledgments, but I clearly indicated that I'm proud of where we're from. I'm proud of our history. I'm proud of our Indigenous First Nations, families and friends, and I'm proud of my family. I hope you're proud to be part of that family too.
You're not the Premier, bud.
I'm just Brenda Davison. I'm the president of the Crow's Nest Conservation Society. First, I'd like to thank you for coming. It's a very divisive issue from here, as you can see. I appreciate that you took the time to come down. So one of the issues for the Pardon me? One of the concerns of coastal conservation is wildlife extirpation. Extirpation is like the first step before extinction. First they're gone from landscape and then it goes that way. And you should know from Livingston Range on Highway 22, grizzly bear, elk, wolverine, wolves, and buffalo have been extirpated. And the space that all these coal mines are going into in the Livingston Blues is 20 kilometers wide. They've been extirpated for 1,500 kilometers, and they have 20 left. And they're going to fill it full of coal mines and more human activity. The reason they're gone is human activity.
Thank you.
Sorry, 30 seconds. Do you have a question?
I do. It's for Minister Schulz. I would like
awesome.
to offer you a tour with Coastal Conservation to come down and see, stand on a hill and see what that area looks like. You can stand some places there isn't even a mountain in front. Sort of show you how small it is and why you think that's going to be a problem. Would you come?
You know, I absolutely would, and I've actually toured the area with MLA Petrovic as well. I know she's very passionate about this, and that's something that we also, I do just want to be clear, that's something that we do address or try to address as best we can through land use planning. It is what makes land use planning so complicated, is the balance of growing populations, growing industries, maintaining water health, landscapes, and biodiversity, including threatened and endangered species. And so sometimes I joke that caribou and sage-grouse keep me up at night, but sometimes they actually do, because these are some of the most complicated things that we're trying to address.
Nice.
And so I'd be happy to do that. I don't know when I'm going to be next. I just had to cancel a trip not too far away from there later in June because of treasury board meetings. But yeah, I do hope to be out this summer, and so when we make that work, we can connect with you, and Chelsea's office could probably make that happen.
I think that's also the reason why there's probably some frustration about how the land was reclaimed initially when the mine was closed 60 years ago.
Someone else's fault again.
Properly. Because if you do proper reclamation, it actually enhances wildlife habitat, as I've seen in the two examples that I gave. So this is what the company intends to do, is to have a different mining techniques so that they're reclaiming and recovering as they go. And I would really hope that at the end of the process, the landscapes would be improved from not only where they are right now, but return to their natural condition.
You can connect with my office and we'll connect with Minister Schulz and see what we can do. I guess Brian has a comment to this.
I would just like to return the favor. You know, folks, if you'd like to come up to Fort Macleod, where I've lived for 60 years, and see a tailings pond after it's been reclaimed, where they put all sorts of stuff in, and the company's had to spend a lot of money to reclaim that. Well, you can go there now and you can see the animals, the birds, the bees. It is reclaimed. And folks, you should come up there and see, I invite you to my home, so you can see what we're doing for first-class regulation. We are doing it better than anybody on the planet.
Thank you. Repeat your question, please.
Hi, my name is Bobby Lambright, and I do want to thank you for coming and giving us an opportunity to ask some questions. I think all of us who live on the land down here are very emotional and very concerned about the impacts of these mines. My question specifically has to do with the advanced coal projects. And I understand, Minister Jean, that you said it was included in the coal committee report. My understanding on Grassy Mountain was the reference was because at that point in time, it was actually still in the regulatory process. That regulatory process concluded conclusively that that mine was not in the public interest. And as part of that process, which I was intimately involved with for probably 7 years, there was identification of huge issues environmentally and with the water. So I'm not understanding why Grassy Mountain is actually being allowed to continue exploration. They do not meet the criteria as stated in the coal committee report. They don't have a permit application before the DER, and they've already done their rate.
You're absolutely right. The application they made was not very good. In fact, it didn't deal with the issues that we need dealt with, like the environment, like how they do it, what they do, quality. And so the first application they put forward was not good enough. But folks, I would still not have a driver's license. It took me 5 times to get it. The truth is that they put in enough.
I love this guy. Come on.
To find out what they can do and how they can do it. They still have to come forward with the entire criteria of what is acceptable.
How many chances do you get?
Bring it forward and show what is acceptable. It's not going to proceed.
I don't get that many chances at my job.
That's for exploratory holes.
It's not.
Nothing more.
Not worth the risk, but
They came forward with one application that was not good enough. We told them they have to bring forward, if they want to get approval, they have to bring forward the requirements that Albertans expect, which we've heard loudly from 30,000 people about what they expect. And you folks expect it too. You expect us to protect the water, the land, the animals, and we're going to do just that.
why are you approving it?
Your name and your question. My name is Avery Clemens. I'm a self-proclaimed eco-activist who is on farms.
Hey.
And we mentioned the government-funded study about fish selenium concentration, and I feel like we all probably know, but the study was published less than a month ago, in May 2025, and they found an average of 18 micrograms of selenium concentrated in fish feed. And I don't know if you missed this in the article, but they warned that any further mining developments in the region could push the crow's nest fishery beyond saving. So clearly, whatever action plan could
Brazil nuts.
continuously doubles back on its word. And do you feel as though allowing a mine project to proceed sends a message to Albertans that you prioritize foreign investors over Alberta's physical?
Yes. Woo! Woo! Smile, Danny.
So the 105 fish that were sampled from 3 different species, it ranged from 9 to 18 micrograms.
Oh, that's not what you said earlier.
Yes, that was above the fish guidelines, and that was where health made that guidance out of precaution. While that study is still being peer reviewed, and there is additional information that they are looking for to ensure that we understand what needs to be done to move forward. And I would just say, I mean, that is how much do we value transparency.
Bullshit.
Still work left to do, and it still has to be peer reviewed. And so, yes, and that would be my criticism is let's wait for the remainder of the information. It has to go through that peer review process that scientific research is required to go through.
Put a pause on the coal exploration then, Minister. Cart before the horse, Minister.
One additional study expected to be released next year, and we were very transparent about that. And instead of picking and choosing and cherry picking information, that we look at that information and then look at how government is using that information to drive policies, both in environment and in the full modernization initiative. We do take that data seriously, and I know it feels the same way that I do when government fund studies. That information should all.
Why the rush, you guys? Why the rush then? What's the rush? What's the rush, Minister?
This body of water was impacted by 10th Mountain, and 10th Mountain is not going ahead as a coal mine. It's going ahead as a pumped water project with wind pumped water. So they're doing it. So you should be happy that they've changed
Jeez.
Listen, folks, there are zero mines planned upstream of Crow's Nest Pass, Crow's Nest Lake. Zero. So there's nothing on the books. So Crow's Nest Lake, not an issue.
Legal precedent!
The other ones don't have any evidence of selenium like this. Like, folks, some parts of the roads don't have any issue with selenium, whatever. Some do, some don't.
Why risk it? Don't risk it, Brian. Don't risk it, Brian.
I just want to remind we have about an hour left, so I appreciate those people who are keeping their questions for 30 seconds and keeping them very concise. Your name and your question, please.
Red shirt.
I live 17 kilometers directly downwind of Grassy Mountain. I've been in this fight for 7 years, and my issues around it are many. But I'm bringing this question back to a personal level. My wife and I have been in that location for over 40 years. We've enriched the soil constantly to grow garden that feeds us year round. And now, with the advent of the potential development of Grassy Mountain and all of the air dispersion caused by the dust that I don't care who it is, you're not going to control all that dust in the windiest part of North America. To believe the common people not measure up to the Alberta government the way foreign investors do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in my opening remarks, I know we talked a lot about water, but I did also mention that we do have air quality monitoring as well. And we do more of this in Alberta than almost any other jurisdiction. And we do, I've seen other projects in place where we do have, I would say, of course, standards, but also plans put in place. And if those are being breached, I have seen projects be halted, paused, or stopped until that issue is addressed. And so just like we do maintain our air quality standards, we do monitor. For a number of projects, I've also seen projects come across my desk that additional air quality monitoring has been required for certain projects to go ahead. Oftentimes that's based on community or neighbor concerns. And so those are often built right into project approvals. And then of course the regulator is expected to uphold that a project is sticking to those standards. In the case that it isn't, and I mentioned that earlier as well, and I can think of this in a variety of different industries where either a facility is shut down, a certain piece of machinery, if it's found that that was the issue, then that is either shut down or shut down until they can put technology in place to manage it. And so that is how our system works. Our regulators are expected to uphold the guidelines that we put in place. We do monitoring for that.
Obviously not. That's also why Albertans told us they wanted to have a ban on mountaintop removal and open because that would mitigate against that kind of airborne debris that you're talking about. And that's why we're encouraging companies to look at doing underground mining techniques so that if you don't have the services, then you're going to have on air, on water.
We want a ban on coal mining, Danny.
For testing is to see if they can do some of those underground mining techniques. So we'll be interested to see how that process plays out.
Thank you for your question. We'll have the next person come to the front and just state your name and how are you? How are you? Good, it's good to see you. Finally. Yourself,
I'm Harvey Durst, third generation rancher resident here, and I'm really concerned with air and water. We shut down all our coal generating plants here, justifiably so. So we're screwing up the atmosphere. Now, how ethical is it to send this coal to another country and we don't know how they're going to come?
Oh no.
I would say, just so you know, I believe we have been developing coal in this province for longer than the inner province. For 150 years. We are in fact the second largest coal producer in the country behind British Columbia. And we are generating 200 million a year in provincial royalties. That's only on one project. Wait a minute, there was a cool project that was approved in the NDP. It's really millions of this. Would go to Ontario because I'm signing an MOU with Ford to try to buy more steel from Ontario rather than buying more steel from the United States. That's one of the things we're doing. Supporting that. So he's coming out here to sign an MOU during Calgary's campaign. And I would hope that when they get approval to build more pipelines, north, south, east, and west, that require 42-inch pipe that are made of steel, that will be steel pipe that is made in a good Canadian steel works, either here or in Saskatchewan or in Ontario. Rather than importing it from a hostile regime like China, and rather than importing it from a country that we're in the middle of a trade war with. Guys, we have to remember that we are no longer developing coal or burning. We made the decision as a province to phase that out. We turned the lights off on the last one in 2024. But coal or steel is going to continue to be a vital product that we use. So many of the products we enjoy, with appliances, cars, tractors, farm equipment, wind turbines, or solar panels. And I think the more that we can have this industry be Canadian and support Canadian development, that's going to be the problem.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to ask my question. My name is Connie. I live now here in Ginger Creek outside the Castle Parks. I'm actually representing a separate sector that we haven't actually touched on today. I've heard from the agricultural sector and they have valid concerns that I still don't think you're actually listening to. Secondly, the sector I'm looking at is the outdoor recreation sector, which is a cornerstone of tourism development in Alberta. And this government is actually asking $25 billion in investment return from tourism by 2035. We have right now $2.8 billion of Alberta's GDP from tourism industry association.
A lot of UCP staffers.
551 million in tax revenues, 336,000 full-time jobs, 76% of Albertans engaged in outdoor recreation. 1% wilderness protected from development and degradation. 98% to protection of water over industrial development.
Yeah, here.
I'm with the Outdoor Recreation Coalition of Alberta, who has got 10 major outdoor recreation organizations that have signed on to this letter asking for you to not proceed with coal on eastern slopes.
I'm so excited to answer that question. I'm a registered trapper from northern Alberta. I have a couple of snowmobiles. You guys have snowmobiles down here? Yeah. I also have a couple of jet boats because I love fishing. So I'm fishing. Don't stop trying to build stuff. It's a great opportunity to do that. I really believe that. Hear what we have to say or not, because I agree with them. I think outdoor recreation is a very big part of our future, and I think we've got a great opportunity to do that. In fact, I've been talking to a coal mine that's finished, that's being reclaimed up just outside of Edmonton, and those folks want to donate it to the people of Edmonton so they can use it for a recreational area, so they can use the Kids Pond that's been cleaned up for fishing and for swimming because the community wants to use it. And I think that particular mine that was mined for about 60 years, it's now closed, we can have some really good facilities to help people with recreation. Because I agree with the young lady that spoke, in northern Alberta especially, and southern Alberta, we have some of the most incredible, beautiful places in the planet. We need to protect them. We need to make sure that people have the opportunity to use them and enjoy them.
What do you have to say?
Okay, I've got 40 years experience in the coal mining, coke making and iron making industry internationally. I did applied research and development with Japan, South Korea, Germany, all over the world. Tech Resources asked me to assess first the deposit of Mozambique, where Bega Riversdale were active. Then they sold it to Rio Tinto for $4 or $5 billion. It was worthless. And then they had to sell it to the Steel Authority of India for only $50 million.
So what should we do with this Northback mine, the Transmountain proposal? What do we do?
They are the inheritors.
Yeah.
And I also researched these deposits of the Crossness Palms for tech resources. They are useless. The Japanese moved out because of low coal quality. It has no economical value.
No economic value.
So
yeah.
there will not be any jobs in the swing mines, but Hancock Mining, Reinhardt, wants to get those $700 billion.
No economic value from this asset, from this resource, yet the environmental destruction will happen anyway, for nothing.
Yes, nothing, and they won't be able to clean it up. And Mr. Reinhardt wants the $700 million back, and best of all is to have a fictitious value to the coal and sue the government so they don't have to mine a lump. It's fraud all over again.
Fraud all the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. What are you from? Where are you from?
From Public Interest Alberta. We're a non-profit organization.
Okay.
Check us out online.
Good to you.
Yeah.
Mountaintop removal.
Before we get on that, the Q&A, I would very much appreciate if we could keep decorum. I'd like to get through every question here. The only way to do that is to hear the question.
It's just they compromise the government.
Yes.
That's what it is. And I've seen this in India where I worked, I've seen it in China, just a corrupt Alberta.
The ranching and eating meat. I can tell you, New York State there is also, our federal government wants to put limits on fertilizer use.
Thank you guys for being here. Thanks for your question too.
To underscore RJ's point, that as soon if we are not prepared to look and find middle ground solutions to allow for industries to proceed while reducing the environmental footprint, you're going to find that different industries become the next on the hit list. And we do not want that to happen. So I would just say we are looking this evening to find more that we can do to mediate the concerns, identify the concerns and address them. But banning industries is just not something our government's going to do. On the hit list of environmentalists like Stephen Guilbeault, and we are certainly not going to allow for him to dictate the future of our
Public Interest Alberta. Are you with the Premier's office?
Your name, your question.
The Premier's office?
My question is actually about the amount of water that's required to extricate coal from the ground. Studies have shown that between 250 liters and 750 liters of water are required for 1 ton of coal production. On the Alberta government website, it states that the population of Alberta grew by approximately 3.5%, which means that we are requiring more water. There's currently 35 rivers that have a water shortage advisory, including the Old Man and too many more that I could name right here.
Yeah.
The smoke on my way here
8 years in a row.
had an advisory that I should stay indoors. We're requiring more water, and you're asking to give our water to mine. I don't understand how that fits.
We're at half an hour. Still got about half an hour.
I really appreciate that question, and I know just especially over the last number of months as we're doing our water availability engagements, obviously water quality is very linked to that, especially in southern Alberta. And so I do just want to be clear that, and I talked about this a little bit in Lethbridge, for those of you who were at the Lethbridge Water Town Hall. The Old Man River Basin is a closed basin, so there is a small amount of water that is still able to be allocated. It's a Crown reservation, and that water, no, hang on and let me finish, okay? For those of you who came here, and you know what? If you don't like the information, it doesn't mean it's not true. The fact of the matter, when it comes to this Crown reservation, the vast majority of that water is specifically reserved for municipal and population growth, as well as for agriculture and irrigation, given how important ag and irrigation is for southern Alberta. And so there is a very, very small amount of water that has been held back in our Crown reservation. It's the Old Man Basin Order that holds that water in place, but it is primarily held, like I said, for municipal and population growth and agriculture. Now, I don't have the details of, we just received some of the details around the proposed project. And I've always said, you know, when it comes to hypotheticals, we should really just deal in fact. And so when it comes to this amount of water, the Grassy Mountain project, the company applied for an allocation of just under 600,000 cubic meters. The allocation is equivalent to 0.00025% of the total water in the Old Man Basin. So for comparison, that volume is less than the average water used to irrigate 3 to 4 quarter sections of ag land. And that's assuming a 12-inch allocation. That water that they are proposing to use by this specific project would primarily come from precipitation that falls within the project boundary and then would be collected and managed on site. Use of this water is licensed under the Water Act, of course, and would be applied against the province's industrial water allocation. That allocation is separate from those assigned to ag, municipalities, or other users, ensuring the project doesn't affect access to water. And you know what, that's similar to what we see in other industries. I mean, we're also addressing oil sands mine water right now and how water is treated and encouraging reuse. And it's very limited freshwater use as possible. And that's going to be part of our Water Act changes and the regulation changes that we see following the engagements that we've been doing over the last year as well.
Call the next question. Your name and your question, sir.
Hi, my name is Lee. 70 to 80% of Albertans don't want coal mines on the eastern slopes. Albertans. Where did you get that number?
Yeah. We're going to allow to ask you questions, and then we'll allow for a response. Thank you. Go ahead. Well, 72% of Crow's Nest past residents voted to. It would be the community most impactful, and so we're back to those citizens. Back to those citizens organized in that way to express themselves in that way is probably because they feel shouted down when they come to a forum like this. Address the legitimate concerns, and I believe we have with the input that we've had from Albertans. That's why, again, the policy changes that we put forward came from that consultation, and we're looking forward to seeing how the regulator holds the companies to account as they put their applications forward.
Because the gentleman didn't get to his question before he interrupted, so I'm just going to let him finish with his question, if that's okay.
I believe it's actually in the other MD. It's not the coal mine wouldn't be in that MD. That depend on that water is one river.
That's so good.
I can't think right now, but it comes to South Saskatchewan, so all the way to Medicine Hat.
Yeah.
I'm just concerned about water. I can use the river every year. My question is actually for Brian Jean. You sent a letter to Premier Kenny in 2021 condemning coal mining, and you essentially said you don't want coal mining. You have to ask Albertans what they want, and you're not doing that. And then I also want to say that the whole modernization initiative was released on Friday. And you said in your letter, don't put out policy changes on the long weekend of a Friday, and that's exactly what you did with the old one.
I appreciate your question. It's very clear that I did take a position against gold because it was being done wrong. We're doing it right. That's why it's called the modernization initiative. You know, as the minister said, you might not like the answer, but it is the truth. We can do coal mining, we can balance water, we can make sure that things are done properly. It wasn't done in the past the proper way. That's why, after talking to my friend here, breaking bread with him some time ago, 3 years ago or 4 years ago now, I told him I wouldn't do open pit mining in the foothills. We're not allowing open pit mining in the foothills. He pointed to a mountain and said, they're planning on taking that mountaintop off. And I said, they're not going to take that mountaintop off. And you know what? The rules say exactly that. They're not taking the mountaintop off, and they're not having any open pit mines. I kept my word, just like I stood up against the oil companies in northern Alberta about water intake. And you can check the record, it's clear. I stood up against them against Stephen Harper's government, which I was a part of and was not popular at the time. But I did that because they were doing it wrong, just like we were doing it wrong in coal. This government's going to do it right.
Why is it really start Friday? A long weekend.
Thank you for your question. We'll move on. Your name and your question, please, ma'am.
My name is Carol, and I have a question for Premier Smith just on the importance of transparency to your government. So on Saturday, I read an article in the Globe and Mail entitled "Coal Mines on Alberta's Eastern Slopes Are Poisoning Fish Studies Population Says." And about 3 paragraphs in, it talks about the government release of the report on May 27th, but then later says that the scientists who authored the report were not made available to speak to reporters. So why would the government share the report online, but not let its authors speak to reporters to ask questions?
Question. Good question.
Answer that. So typically what happens in government, and those reports are made public, they are published on open data. And then typically it is me or a government spokesperson that speaks to government policies for media. And so oftentimes when the questions come into our office, they're typically looking for a comment from me. That has been pretty common practice, I would say, over the last number of decades. We certainly didn't change that at all. If anything, Premier has an expectation that we are even more available to media all of the time. And certainly my office always is. But typically it would be people who, every department has people who've been identified as a government spokesperson. And oftentimes they come to us.
The questions are about science, not about policy. So the scientists should be answering.
Yeah, and any department also has officials that would be, typically they're trained and selected by the department as official spokespeople for the department. And so they make that decision. We don't make that decision, but we often comment. And then if they need an expert of a certain area within the department and our communications area, they choose spokespeople who speak on behalf of the government all of the time. And so I don't have any selection in that, and they probably have a process for media training and availability and things like that. And so they make that choice, but we always make people available to speak to the media about numbers and reports that are made public. Thank you, Pat. I just want to let everyone know we have about 30 minutes left in this Q&A, so we are just going to try and get through the questions here. Your name and your question, please.
My name is Brandon. Hi, Brian. I have a question about royalties. You mentioned that we were receiving less before and we will be receiving more in the future. What will be the return rate to Albertans?
You know, it's sort of like that question that was asked about releasing the report. You know, we're still modernizing, we're still consulting, you want to listen up. I know this for sure, that royalty rates are too low. I don't know what the answer is. I've had a competitive analysis done across the world. And I know that we are going to have some of the more robust royalty rates on the planet because, frankly, if they're going to do this, if they're going to have the ability to take our assets in this situation, they're going to pay for it. And these companies, folks, by the way, everybody raise their cell phone. They were made in China. Okay, we don't want to see that anymore. Yes, they were. Your parts from your cell phone and your computer and everything else that you use and want are made in a place that they can put off any moment. We have to think about this, folks. We have to think about how we do things and how we do things better. And we are going to do exactly that. Royalty rates, we made from one mine last year, I think, $200 million. The truth is, it depends on where it is, depends on what it brings in, depends on the quality of it, but it will be significantly higher than what it has been in the past.
Yeah, just to add to that, the thing that is challenging about coal is that the way the province developed, they allowed a lot of the coal to be held in freehold mineral rights. Whereas, and that's part of the reason why it's been such a complicated policy, is that when we own the rights, we do for the vast majority of oil and gas, we can make a decision to lease or not. When a private owner makes a decision to sell that forward as they have over generations, that makes it more complicated to not only figure out how to respect those property rights, but also how to tax them. So we do have a freehold tax that we have on a very small number of oil and gas rights that are owned in freehold, but we have to leave that as a bit of a guidepost to how to deal with both.
Thank you for that. Your name and your question, sir.
My name is Chris Spearman. I have 20 questions because I've written them previously and never got an answer from this government. So, many of the issues that are, I appreciate the opportunity to ask questions tonight, and I appreciate going forward, but it's about the lack of transparency and the lack of accountability from the government and from the coal companies. A year ago, I attended a selenium information meeting in Blairmore on June the 12th, and I asked questions that I have asked previously to Atrium Coal. And I asked them about how they were going to control issues like selenium. I said, is there any place in the world where a municipality has been able to remove excess selenium from the water? Give me an example. And they couldn't. And they said they would get back to me. And I never heard from them for 5 months. They asked me to write my questions down. I sent them in. I didn't hear for 5 months from them. And then I just got an acknowledgement and said Northback would respond. I've never heard back from Northback. So now I say I've written similar questions to Mr. Jean about name a municipality in the world that's been able to remove excess selenium from the water. No response. 2 letters. I've written 2 letters to the Premier listing several of my questions. But
you have 30 seconds. Sir, your question.
All right. I'm going to boil it down to one thing. I'm going to send my 20 questions in and hope to get answers from you. But the UCP government in 2019 didn't have a mandate to open up the coal mines. The UCP government elected in 2023 didn't have a mandate to open up the coal mines. Could you commit to us as quickly as you did to the separatists that you would hold the referendum on coal mining in Alberta and abide by the results?
Well, Chris, I think you know how citizen-initiated referendum works. You have the ability to, and we did lower the threshold to make it easier for anyone to put a question to the people. You could sign up 177,000 people, and then we can put it on referendum, absolutely. So feel free, go ahead.
Nice.
Absolutely. Abide by the results. Absolutely. Well, look, I mean, sure, because what would happen in a yes/no referendum is that there'd be a yes side and there'd be a no side, and Albertans would have to decide if paying $14 billion instead of paying it on schools and hospitals and roads. It's what they want to do.
Oh, it's cool. I love it. Keep going.
So that we can create a
So good.
that would happen in a referendum.
Please keep talking.
By all means, citizen-initiated referendum. I believe in democracy. I strongly encourage you. The new rules, I believe, are going to be proclaimed as of July 1st. You have a 120-day period to gather the signatures. The threshold is the 10% of the previous voter turnout in these elections, 177 days. So I encourage you to go ahead and do that. Let's have this ready.
She can afford it for
Okay.
she can afford it.
But when it comes to the question that you have, I think that Brian answered the question maybe a different way, is let's change the practices so selenium doesn't get into water in the first place. And that's why Alberta mining, no new mine, no mountaintop removal is one of the ways to mitigate on it.
And Chris, I apologize. I usually get back to everybody. Here's my business card.
He lost the email, Chris.
Thank you. Your name and your question, please. My name is Pauline Rosemaker. The AER, Premier Smith, the AER has stated that the cumulative impacts of this project's trajectory are outside of the scope of the approval decision. However, the overwhelming concern from citizens has demanded it should be otherwise. Specifically, the projected environmental impacts must be the deciding factor to not proceed with the project. Can you speak with full transparency about why you are ignoring vital information, devaluing environmental and social cumulative impacts, and prioritizing economic prosperity of only a few over your duty to balance the values of all citizens and your responsibility to safeguard Alberta's resources for current Albertans and future generations of Albertans?
Well, I believe that that companies can develop resources and minimize impact on the environment because they've seen it. I trust because we have had industries going back over 100 years who have been able to do that, and we get better and better at environmental management, and we're going to continue to get better and better at it. Progressive, in particular, they've identified this site because let's remember it's an unrestored site from a previous mine operation. It's got a variety of safety hazards already that they want to be able to address in the process of development. They've made many redesigns to the project to address the issues that we're hearing about tonight. And as a result, they've narrowed the scope of the project. So it would produce about 3.75 million tons of steel making coal annually, and then conduct progressive reclamation. I think the company is hearing the concerns that are being raised, and they're responding to it.
Why are you speaking on their behalf?
In the application, and it will be up to the AER to see if they're able to proceed.
Why are you speaking for the company, Danny? Why are you speaking for the company, though? Why are you speaking for the corporation, Premier?
Thank you for that. I'll take the next question.
You don't work for them. You work for us.
Introducing yourself to them and ask your question.
My name is Don McRae. I'm resident of Pincher Creek. I am a retired Syncrude worker. I lived in Fort Macleod for 28 years. I was fortunate to work for a well-being oil company. There were several meetings that went on saying no to the oil sands. I would like to see Alberta today without the oil sands. I live in Pincher Creek. I would like to know how much money is generated for this southern part of Alberta by the miners that need to go to the coal mines to work in Sparwood, Elkford, and in that area. Is there a dollar figure? I believe Pincher Creek has at least 500 residents working in the coal mines in BC. Now, this mine in the past has nothing to do with me, but it's good for the economy. If we didn't need jobs, we could all sit back and relax. Thank you.
There's all, yeah.
All right. Your name and your question.
Hi, I'm Brenda, and I don't know if you remember me, Danielle, but in 2022 on your pre-election town hall meetings, I followed you from Sundre up to Rocky Mountain House, and we spoke one-on-one, and which I have on record. And I asked you, I explained to you that the UCP has secretly sold off in 2020 over 300,000 acres in Category 2 in Clearwater County. Okay, and you were very concerned about it, and I appreciated that. And so then you told me there was a couple in the south that you're interested in, because the people in the south wanted it. But when I said, we talked about that they were application coal mines that were there, and they were converted secretly into applications. They were turned into active coal leases. And so I explained that to you, and we talked about that. You said they should be easy to get back because they're just leases, and they're only paying $3.50 a hectare for the last how many years. You said the freehold would cost more, and we'd have to look into that. You would get back to me. I asked you 3 times. I said, do you agree with mining in Category 2? And you said, quote, no, coal mining should have never been permitted in Category 2. My question is, now Valerie Black Eagle, who's suing us for 1.6 million or billion, they're sitting on Corkscrew Mountain, 161 square kilometers on Corkscrew Mountain, ready, just west of Caroline, to mine. They think they're going to be the first one. And they got their exploration permit. And I want to hear from you because you told me none in Category 2. And I need to know why you're doing this.
Well, look, I mean, I said the same thing when I was first asked about this, is it was a mistake to send out leases in those lands and on those lands, because I think we had under the 1976 coal policy a pretty good compromise. And I think that there was an error made. It was an error that was made under the NDP. No. Back to the number is, when government then issues the leases, now we created a liability. So yes, I mentioned earlier, we have several companies that we are in negotiations with to settle so that we can take the leases back. It's not going to be free to do that. It's going to be fairly costly to do that. And I'm telling you, yes, we're working on that. And it takes 2 to tango. No, we didn't open the door. The ND's open.
Just in February, we've allowed for the question. Let's hear the answer.
I'm just telling you, yes, that if we are able to get settlements with these companies, one of the things we certainly wouldn't settle with them then allow them to keep the leases. That wouldn't make any sense. If we settle with them, they will have to transfer the leases and they'd have to transfer the freehold. That's the negotiation that we're in right now. We hope that we'll be able to do that with a large number of the leases so that we don't have to have this conversation all over the province. That being said, it was always, these 4 advanced mines were always identified to have a different process. And Grassy, Tent, and then the 2 up north were ones that were identified to go through with an 8-year process. They are on Category 4 lands. That was something that should have been an expectation, that was the deal that the prior governments, going back to Lockheed, had made with the industry. So I want to see if we can be respectful of those 4 advanced projects going forward. Any new would have to follow the new policy. No open mines, no mountaintop removal, and a preference for the underground mining techniques. But do know that once we get to a settlement and are able to announce it, you will know. And as part of that settlement, we would be transferring those leases back to the crown so that they would be held for the people of Alberta.
So you're telling me again, no mining on Category 2?
That would be my preference.
Thank you.
Preference. Thank you. We have about 15 minutes left in our Q&A. Your name and your question, sir.
I'm Cornelius Correa. I worked for Tech Resources for 18 years, recently retired. I've got 40 years of experience, international coal mining, coke, iron making, and steel making. So I was part of the Tech's team to assess coal deposits throughout the world. So a bit of context. The first one was Mozambique. Back when Riversdale were there, they sold it for $4 billion to Rio Tinto. It was not the value by far, it was basically fraud. They sold it to the Steel Authority of India for $50 million within 2 years. Now they moved to Alberta. Yeah? And they started the Crossing Mountain project. More context, the Japanese had big coal mining interests there up until the late 70s. They moved out because the coal quality was inadequate for the modern iron making industry and had better, higher quality in the Elk Valley. That's what happened. So they shut them all down because the coal, and Japanese are polite, but they called it shit coal. So now,
Your question, sir?
So the question now is, I was key expert witness in October 2020 for the AER hearing on Brassy, and I proved the coal quality is inadequate, is far below the Elk Valley. Already to start with, and after the first 2 years, it collapsed. So there will be no money for remediation. It will be a swing mine. There won't be value-added, long-lasting jobs. And Gina just wants her $700 million back. She unwisely invested to spin it off to other investors, or better, sue the government, which they're compromising.
Thank you. Can you explain a little bit more about why it is you would say that the quality is so different between here and the mines on the other side? What is it? What's the factor that you look at?
Yes, it's on the other side of the range. So the coal quality there is, there's fault systems. It's just an inferior quality compared to the Elk Valley. That's why coal mining moved to Elk Valley as soon as they also got techniques to mine in the higher Elk Valley regions. That's why the coal is significantly less in quality. If you look at the coke-making properties, the chemistry, the carbon forms, the petrography, it doesn't make good, strong coke the way the Elk Valley will make it, so the economic value is significantly less.
Could this be why, though, that the company has narrowed the seam that they're looking at? They're looking at only going after the highest value coal. Could that be part of the reason? Is there a chance that there would be, I don't know enough about the uniformity of the deposit, is there a chance that a smaller project would have the same quality?
So they have one coal seam which is of slightly better quality. It's still quite a bit below the Elk Valley. And also it's less, about 80 or 75% was in the valley. Yeah, and it's only seam one. So what's left of seam one will be gone after the first 2 years. And that's what they misrepresented in the presentation at the AER hearing. So the coal quality will collapse after the initial 2 years.
Next question, we wasted time on that.
Premier, if it's okay with you,
There's no economic viability.
They're not interested.
Premier, if it's okay with you, I'd like to set up a meeting with this individual. We'll collect a card, and then we can possibly set up for more information from him as well. So yeah, if everyone's okay with that. Thank you, sir, for that. I think I have some staff in the back that we can also connect with too, so thank you. I'll ask for the next person in line for their question. Sir, your name and your question.
Hi, it's Curtis.
If I may just to go back to one of the earlier questions that was asked.
Come on, Premier. Look at the lineup. Thank you. Have some respect.
Premier, I'm happy to give you the floor to answer the question on the category too.
Well, I think that what the gentleman mentioned was important because part of what you see in British Columbia is they have existing infrastructure. This is why it's very difficult to develop all through the eastern slopes, is that you have to develop roads and you have to develop additional infrastructure to take it out. That's why I think that Brassy has always been the preferred spot because there's at least infrastructure there, but it's why it's so much more difficult to build the further in that you go.
Thank you. All right, Curtis, your question.
Hi, I'm super surprised to see you guys here.
Yeah.
In front of all of us who are very concerned about this issue. You'd probably rather be watching the game in Florida right now. But
For your coal-related question. You have about 30 seconds or less.
Coming down? Okay, that's good. You know that Kootenai Mesa Lake is fed by Fording River, Milk River, contaminated by Tech's project. There is no way to clean that up. There is no way to remove selenium from the water once it's in there. It is in there. You are going to destroy pristine, natural habitat. For Gina. Gina is your pal.
Gina.
All of us here, we are the enemy. Like, this is not a Republican gala. Like, I'm surprised.
That's good. Oh, it's so good.
Believe in Canada.
Hey, it's so funny.
I'll wait for the answer. Then I didn't hear a question.
I'm happy to.
Yes, the question was, do I believe in Canada? I think that more Alberta is a better Canada. Better Alberta is a better Canada. Do you not believe that? I also believe that we can stop water from getting into Selenium. And sir, with respect, I'd be happy to.
Water is
The BC government is requiring people to take selenium out of the water in BC because of the situation.
How?
The evidence is true. They have a bill. They spend a ton of money and they're going through the water and they're taking it out. So,
How?
well, I'm not a scientist, but as I said, I'd be happy to get back to you with that information.
All right, everyone.
By email.
We have about 5 minutes
Very
left.
so
I don't
funny.
think we're going to get through everyone's questions. So, your name and your question, please.
Sorry, but I think you've got plenty of time for everyone up there to speak. I think you should at least respect the people that are.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe this is wonderful information, and I'd like to thank the ministers and the premier for being here today to answer all of these questions. So
They didn't answer all of them. Sorry, Emily. I'm close.
I'm not sure if you're aware, but recently there was a landmark decision in the BC Supreme Court against Teal Cedar Products. So Teal had a contract, and the BC government protected the land over the resource. And the Supreme Court of BC ruled in favor of the government. So I don't know, you seem to be able to bring court cases against individual people in this province, like for example, the whistleblower at Metsanopoulos. You've brought 2 very strong legal firms against her. And yet I feel like you can't protect Albertans from this foreign coal baron. Like, you're so big on protecting Alberta. Why don't you please protect Alberta?
Wow.
You know, I think the man that spent 20 odd years in Syndicate said it best. We are protecting Albertans. We're making sure we take care of the air, the water, the earth, the plants, the forest, fire, and your jobs. So we can stay in Alberta and work and raise a family here. We need jobs and we need an economy, and that's how we protect Albertans. Making sure we balance it, and we're going to balance it right.
All right, the next question, ma'am. Your name and your question.
My name is Pat Conway. I am a grandma. I'm a grandma from Calgary. And the best thing that came out of all of this, when all the war started, saving our water and our environment, was the fact that you probably noticed Albertans from all over, all walks of life, all political parties and interests, we joined together. And we stood up and we said no to no coal mining, no coal mining at all.
Do you have a question, ma'am?
Okay, thank you, Chelsea. Yes, as you sit there dressed in blue, which is representative for most of us about water, I would like to know, what are you doing supporting foreign interests over our water? The businesses, the ranchers here who are talking about not being able to plant vegetables and eat them, not just because of the selenium, because every foot that they cut down trees and make roads is making dust, which our wind can't stop, which, Rebecca, every single study and view about air quality cannot stop that wind. So, Premier Smith, why aren't you standing up for Albertans and not just 8,000 who voted for you when you had your premiership review? The rest of us.
Thank you very much.
I'm grateful that our premier stands up for Albertans every single day. When it comes to okay, you know what, our premier Stands up for Alberta, our major industries, our way of life every single day. Our premier loves Alberta, and I no question. Absolutely.
You get paid that.
And I will never support it. She travels the province day after day, month after month, has done this for the last, 2.5, 3, 4 years. Feels like more, it's been 3. But she doesn't stop. Next question. You know what? Our premier loves Alberta and she loves Albertans and she spends every waking moment of her time traveling this province from corner to corner, hearing their feedback, listening to their ideas, hearing their concerns that we can try to down itself. An even better place to live, to work, to raise your family. And when she is not doing that, she is traveling the world talking about what Alberta has to offer. You know, to answer your question about dust, and this has been raised, we do monitor air quality at more than 130 permanent stations throughout the province. We use that data to make sure that air quality status, and it also informs our management actions, as I mentioned before. We regularly check air quality against regional, provincial, and federal standards. The impact, specifically of coal, and I know you mentioned also dust and transportation. We see this again, not just in one industry, but in all of our industries. I've seen this in a number of files as well. It also depends on the magnitude, the type of mining, the proximity of communities, and sensitive ecosystems. And those are all absolutely considerations that we make when we're looking at dust and air quality. And I know I've talked also a lot about water tonight as well.
Thank you for that. It is 7:30, but the Premier has graciously said that we are going to work through the end of this line, so thank you, Premier. I'll have the next person come up with their question. No, I would like to excuse me, madam. Sir, your name and your question.
Travis Hilliard, I want to thank all of you for being here, coming to Lion's Den. I know it's not easy, but thank you. It appears to be that there's a lot of out of sight, out of mind. Believe me, this will get done when there's no actual studies to prevent selenium from leaking in. I don't understand why you want us to believe you when that's not proven by peer-reviewed studies yet. Mr. Sigurdson, you do say that you want to protect farmers and agriculture down here. So why did the Premier have a moratorium against green energy, which could provide agrivoltaics, provide more water retention, reduce droughts in here, as we've heard previously? So why are you picking sides with coal and not with billions of dollars that have since exited the province with investments?
I can tell you, a lot of landowners who want to ban wind turbines and solar panels. Yeah. And we're not going to do that either.
Give the moratorium, though. You lost billions in investment, Premier.
Set rules around an agriculture first policy so that
Years lost to projects, you know that. Billions of dollars.
cannot be put on property that has
Oh, Brian's out.
agriculture value, and they have to put aside money so that they clean it up at the end of life. And that's the responsible thing to do, is that when you have these kind of landowner conflicts with industry coming in, you have to find a balance. You have to find a way to address the legitimate concerns. Have setback areas. We've got an 800
There goes Brian.
setback of turbines from an individual home in response to the concerns that we've heard from landowners. And that's the balance that we have. We have a balance on every single issue. That's just another example.
One Australian billionaire. One Australian billionaire.
There will always be a crowd of people who will come into a community center.
It's an Australian billionaire.
And you don't think that that's our job?
Gina.
Our job is to find a way to address the legitimate concerns, and there's many legitimate.
Why are you speaking for Gina?
And we're going to address those and make sure that the regulatory process holds it to a very high standard.
Where's Gina?
RJ, would you like to comment?
Danny, where's...
Comment on this is something that we worked really heavily on, and trust me, when we talked about the moratorium, I had a endless line of farmers and ranchers approaching me saying that they were very uncomfortable with the amount of prime agriculture that was being lost, and that there wasn't proper reclamation strategies put in place, that there was no weed control proper that was planned.
Oh, weed
and that
control,
it was,
yeah. Weed control.
to them, their words, the Wild West, and there needed to be a pause so that there could be proper regulations put in place and understanding that. And I've said this many times, I just came back traveling internationally promoting Alberta agriculture. The fact is, by 2050 mid-century, the demand for food is going to increase by anywhere from 55 to 65%. That's a conservative estimate.
Where's the water coming from?
We're going to continue to be able to ensure that we can feed domestically at home, deal with food affordability and food security. If the investments this government is making around irrigation, like I mentioned, $933 million in irrigation modernization and projects, that is means we can irrigate the same amount of land with this less allocations. It's expansions into more storage like Ardley and Airmore. It's maintaining the irrigation rehabilitation program and others that are so incredibly important. When it came to renewables that were happening, it was time that a pause happened. There was too many impacts happening to lost farmland and neighbor conflicts.
What are you talking about?
Was very important to make sure we.
It's a coal town hall, Minister. It's a coal town hall, buddy.
All of the next, your name and your question, sir.
My name's Joe. I'm a 20-year coal miner.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Thanks for coming to our beautiful corner of the province. I work in BC, and I bring all of my money back into Alberta. I love being from Alberta beef. My question is a bit of a two-part. Will the stringent selenium management standards that we've painstakingly developed in the Elk Valley over the last 15 years that in fact do work, but take time to bring down already elevated levels, become standards for mining in Alberta too? Things such as saturated rock fills, downstream selenium extraction plants, suboxic layering on spoils, and lining of blast holes to prevent nitrate and nitrite leaching. Also, will dust suppression technology such as the dust suppression used at the Neptune coal terminal in West Vancouver become standard practice in Alberta too?
Who wrote the question for you, bud?
Fantastic, Joe. Thanks for coming here and appreciate the work you do and the hard work you do for your family and for the province of Alberta. I really do. It means a lot. And having you come here today, you know, what I've heard clearly is that yes and yes and no. And thank you, Joe, for bringing the yes. I think it's important.
Joe. Good job, Joe.
You're absolutely right. There are places around the world that do better than we do it, and they've done it the hard way. Well, the good news is we're not going to do it the hard way anymore. We're going to make sure that we don't allow them to put selenium in the water in the first place. And the places that do have selenium, they're going to clean it up. And you know what, folks? Not every how you just heard from somebody how it's done. There's 4 or 5 different methods that are currently being used. Downstream extraction method they use in the Elk River right now, don't they, Joe?
They told us to take great pride in our environmental stewardship.
Yes. And we're going to do better than they did, folks, just like we do in everything else.
Oh, man, what a fucker.
Your name and question, sir.
That's so awesome.
Thanks for being here. Been quite a time. My name's Jim Byrne. I was a professor at the University of Lethbridge for 40 years studying water. Started with water in 1987. I published papers that said climate change is going to reduce our water supply from spring snowmelt by about 50% by 2050. You know what? We're ahead on that. Our water supply is shrinking rapidly. Okay? I'm concerned about some things that have been said today, and I have a question. I'll finish up. Brian, and I let Joe, I talked to him in the line, nice fellow, okay? But Joe, the referee literature does not agree that BC is doing a good job on selenium in BC. They're not doing it. It's not happening. We got $6 billion. Brian, you talked about oil sands. We've only reclaimed 7% of oil sands. We've got hundreds of billions of dollars in liabilities. We've got hundreds of billions of dollars in liabilities for abandoned mines, for abandoned oil wells. Okay?
Hundreds of billions.
We don't trust you. Forgive us. And please don't dump this on the NDP, because you guys have been governing as conservatives since 1972. They had 4 years.
I love this guy. Good. Oh, good.
I can tell you the selenium removal techniques are not well refined and they're not supported by referee literature. And a lot of what you said today is not supported by the science, objective science, referee literature. Mr. Sigurdson, I do appreciate you mentioning it, okay? But it's not supported by the referee literature. You need some really important independent reviews, and I'd like to see how you're going to do that because you don't have good science.
No, nothing.
I know we're here to talk about coal, and I won't talk too much about the oil sands, but I will say we did make some changes last year to the mine financial security program to ensure that there's more dollars in that fund for reclamation. And under the Environmental Protection and Enhancement Act, coal mine operators are responsible for remediating and reclaiming their mines. We require them to pay financial security to the AER at the start of the mining project, and then those cleanup costs are not paid by taxpayers, but instead paid by the opponents. That's our pay principle.
We're so screwed, and you know it.
We have worked to make some changes to that program. More to come on oil sands, but as I said, we set the standards. It is up to those.
What are you looking at everything? Are you mad?
To us that they can meet them.
And I would say that what we have done is we have a mandatory spend for companies to pay down the liability that has been accumulated in oil and gas. They paid $700 million a year for the last 2 years. It's going to continue. We think it's a $30 billion liability. So
Oh, it's 250 billion, and you know it. Plus, and you fucking know it too.
Paid down to zero, but we're applying that same principle to every type of industrial.
30 billion.
That's why we're putting reclamation sinking funds in place for solar and wind. We have the sinking funds as well. We're putting in place for coal development. There should never be a circumstance where when an installation comes to an end that there isn't money to be able to pay the cleanup. That's the policies that we're changing.
You're not my uncle.
You name your question. My name is Bonnie Castlerine, and my credentials are I'm a daughter, granddaughter, and great-granddaughter of coal miners from the Crow's Nest Pass. I would like to thank the panel for having the courage to deal with the crowd. And I have the floor. And I feel that you are owed an apology for the apparent behavior. Okay. Here's my question. This is a question for you all to ponder. Why did the citizens of the Crow's Nest Pass vote 72% in favor of Grassy Mountain?
Money. And kickbacks.
From both sides. We're going to allow this lady to finish her question. Thank you.
1% of the province.
Okay, excuse me. The minority here has the floor. We have listened. We feel that this project, which is a category 4, by the way, not category 2 or 3, that this project is going to be done in a responsible manner. I, for one, would not be standing here in support, nor would the other members that I'm involved with, if we thought that our community was going to be jeopardized. It's going to have a domino effect for everybody. And I don't mean the water. I mean
Sounds scary.
economic and everything else. Picture the coast.
Sorry, now your question here.
Okay, my question again. Why do you think 72% of the citizens of the Crow's Nest Pass voted yes?
Because North Mac want them.
Because maybe they don't want to go to BC to find a job?
Now, your name and your question, please.
RJ Sigurdson, I'm from the Nation, and I'm a proud Blackfoot woman. I have some friends here too. And I don't remember leadership voting yes for you guys to do this. I don't understand why you are doing this. We have children, future children in our world here that are suffering. And now they're going to suffer more because of this mine that's going through. You don't understand. That settlement is going all the way from that mountain, all the way down to Saskatchewan. That is poison. We're poisoning our children.
Do you have a question now?
That's my question.
No.
You know, I appreciate you coming forward. I think one thing that there is an opportunity here, first of all, to have Indigenous participation in coal mines, in oil and gas mines, in industry, so that we get it right, because they're right, we need to do it right, and we're going to do it right. We're going to protect the water. We're going to make sure we do that. And we have full consultation with the Indigenous folks. The mine has done that, as they are doing it right across the province, or they don't have the ability to go forward.
Thank you. Your name and your question now.
It's Leslie Scrimshaw, and my question is for the Minister of Agriculture. I'm concerned because I don't think there's enough water in our area to support another thirsty industry. Last year, basically the river ran dry. So, I mean, we were getting our water trucked in. So I'm concerned about how do you maintain a water supply for those 56,000 people who rely in southern Alberta who work in agriculture. You know, we want to protect those people.
And definitely we do. I have our irrigation districts that stepped up and went into water sharing agreements to make sure that we share the water across was extremely important. And a huge thanks to those farmers and ranchers that really stepped up in those negotiations at the front end of it. This is why we're investing so much in irrigation and water storage. There, for a long time, we've gotten away from looking at the larger projects that we know are necessary to support the growth in this province, both in agriculture, but as well as industry and our municipalities. That's why in our last budget, we are moving forward with feasibility studies on Hartley and Airmore. And we need to look at every possibility to continue to expand storage within the province of Alberta so that we can continue to grow with industry and with population growth. And that's why we're putting so many hundreds of millions of dollars towards these types of investments that are going to be crucial to provide the stability that we know is necessary to make sure the water is there for farmers and ranchers, but as well our municipalities.
Yeah, and to echo what RJ just said, we work really closely with Ag and Irrigation on the work that we're doing to manage water availability. And as I said earlier today, I know availability and quality are two different things, but they are linked, because when we look at availability of water, agriculture, and human health and safety, growing municipalities, and supporting human population and communities, that's our top priority when it comes to water use, especially in the Old Man, which is a closed basin. But we are also looking at ways to, as RJ said, increase our storage capacity and be better able to manage the water we have, but also to use less fresh water where we can and encourage recycling practices in all of our major industries. So this is very much a top of mind issue for us, and we've been engaging on it so much so that we split the engagement because I didn't want to go out with any preconceived notions from a department. We went out to ask Albertans what matters most, and then we did a second round of engagements to fine-tune any legislative or regulatory or policy changes that we're going to be making.
We better come back, Minister.
And the minister, when we did get water restrictions, she brought to cabinet a change of policy for prioritization to put people first and animals first. The work that she's doing now is for us to find a way to take used water for industrial use, so we're not drawing fresh water out, and so she's going to be doing a lot of work on that. We're also trying to create new water rights by being able to have more reservoirs so we can hold more water. We're actually, even in drought, we're allowing more water to flow through than we need to by law. And so if we can find better ways to manage that, that will also protect the food producers.
Coal companies, yeah.
We know agriculture's been under attack by those who want to ban fertilizers, those who want to ban.
By the UCP government, and you know it. This is your voter base.
We want to, whether it's net zero power regs.
We need leader Brian Jean.
Vehicle regs. We know that the industry is under threat, and I've asked RJ Sigurdson, who's our agriculture minister, to bring through a right to farm bill either in the fall or in the spring, and I'd love for all of you to give him feedback about what you'd like to see in that, because we know that we've got to put
No coal.
Thank you so much for being on.
These are your voters, Premier.
That concludes a question and answer. I appreciate your attendance. We will not be taking any further questions at this time, but I will invite
Of course not.
to provide closing remarks if they so wish. Nope, all right. So I just want to thank Premier Spin, Minister Schulz, Minister Jean, and Minister Sigurdson for taking the time to be here for addressing the concerns raised today. At this point, our scheduled program is complete. I kindly set a communication and give the order with document so staff can begin the necessary cleanup. Thank you again as we travel safely.
Premier, when are you coming back to this community? Premier, when are you coming back? There's a lot of people that didn't get their questions answered. Premier, there's over 500 people in the room. When are you coming back, Premier? Why are you running away? Premier, there's a lot more questions in the room. Premier? Oh, she's coming down. That's good. Sorry, can you not touch her?
Sorry, Red.
Oh, that's okay. Premier, it's a question for you. Premier, do you have time for a question? Excuse me, thank you. No? Apparently not. Okay, excuse me, guys. This is being recorded live right now. Can you, I just want to leave I want to exit. Oh, I'm not touching anyone. Just let me leave the building. Don't touch it. Let me leave the building. Okay, excuse me, thank you. Excuse me, sir. Thank you. Excuse me. Premier, why are you running away? Premier? What are you scared of, Premier?
Won't even talk to us. You guys missed it.
You guys want to get back in here.
Yeah, I'd like to get back in here too. Thanks. Excuse me. Thanks, guys. Cheers. Thanks for holding the door.